met Christ. He's the light of the world. He became a man, but like his spirit, his light came into me, and I knew he was real. And I had some intimate encounters like right away. And so I was just instantly addicted to that relationship. It was like all in. And so the first year was like amazing. I'm gonna be the best dad I could be. It was focused on Christ and my daughter. That was it.
Let's go all the way back. I believe you're from, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm thinking Bakersfield, California. Is that right?
Bakersfield, California.
Bakersfield.
I actually was born in Hawthorne, California, right outside of LA.
Okay.
And my dad was a banker. My mom was a nurse. We lived in Torrance until I was in 4th grade. Then we moved to Bakersfield. That's the all the way back.
Now, how does a city like Bakersfield produce a rock star like Brian Welch?
It's Buck Owens' fault.
Who's that?
Buck Owens is a famous country star.
Of course, I knew that.
And you know, everybody was in the country when I was growing up.
Okay.
And I kind of followed footsteps and became a little country kid with a cowboy hat and boots for about 3 months during one summer.
Okay, okay.
And then I looked in the mirror and I was like, what are you doing?
That's not you.
And so I went straight metal. I went the opposite way.
All right, who taught you how to play guitar? Where does that start?
Actually, I remember listening to, they had these 8-tracks, boys and girls, back in the day. And they had these 8-tracks, and I put an 8-track in, and it played music. It's a box into another box, and it played music. And it was Queen, The Game, Another One Bites the Dust, that record.
Okay.
And yeah. I heard a drum fill. It was like, and I was like, Dad, I want to play drums.
Okay.
And he's like, well, you know how many pieces there are to a drum set? Do you want to carry those around everywhere? He talked, because he's thinking noise, right?
Right.
And he talked me into guitar. I started playing guitar, and that was around 1980.
Do you remember the first song you learned on the guitar?
Yeah, Smoke on the Water.
Smoke on the Water.
Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And,
I was gonna say.
And yeah.
That's what's the melody for that? What's the chord line? So how old are you at this time? So I'm picturing a what, 8-year-old, a 10-year-old?
10 years old. 10 years old. Yeah.
10-year-old. You're playing that, and your parents are thinking what? Be quiet.
No, he'll put it down next week. He'll be like over it, you know. Little did they know.
You didn't. So what keeps you going here again in Bakersfield playing at 10 years old, the guitar? Because it's always amazing when I meet somebody like yourself. You don't necessarily come from a family of musicians or a family, like your mom or dad, they don't play, right? So it's just you.
No, I was in church with them not too long ago, and I was wondering what key my dad was singing the worship songs in. I'm like, so I don't know. They can't sing in key. My brother, no. It's just something that, I think it was a gift, because I had some issues growing up, getting bullied, and I went through depression like pretty early.
Early in life.
Yeah, you know, probably 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade in those years.
Okay.
I remember looking in the mirror and not liking myself.
Wow.
Probably because I got picked on, and girls, you know, I remember the first girl, her name was Keely, and I asked her, will you go study with me? Because I thought that's what it was, not steady. But I said study.
You said okay,
I thought that you go with a girl and you study your schoolwork after school, and she's your girlfriend. And she said, no. And rejection issues right then. So I was like, you know what's crazy? It's funny things can set you on a course in your life that's negative. And I was like, oh, I'm ugly and I'm this and that. And I carried these thoughts in my head. So
yeah, they say depression usually comes in some weird or unique way that most of the time the person don't even know how it started. So,
right.
Yeah. Not that we're psychologists or anything, but
right.
But all right. So let's talk about the band Korn. That starts in Bakersfield. Or no? No,
we all grew up together in Bakersfield, but the band actually started in Huntington Beach, California. I met the bass player in junior high, 7th grade. He was into Duran Duran. I was into Iron Maiden and Ozzy. And I told him, you need to get into metal, bro. And so it worked. And I met the guitar player, Monkey, in the 9th grade. I met the singer, 4th grade, actually. He went to so yeah, but we ended up, when we graduate from high school, you're in the armpit of California, in Bakersfield, right?
I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
You got to get out of there.
Yeah.
So we all come to LA, and through other circumstances, we ended up forming Korn in around '93.
Who comes up with the genre of heavy metal? Like, why heavy metal and not pop rock or R&B or something else? You know.
Just that we were all drawn to it growing up. You know, all of us just had that in common, and it was something that I just loved the sound. I loved the vocals. I loved the guitar, and so did the guys too.
Yeah.
And so we just gravitated towards each other.
Was it big then? Like, because we're talking about early '90s or around what time?
Probably. I mean, from when I got into it, it was early '80s to the early '90s. So that decade right there.
Was heavy metal coming into its own at that time? Was it a big genre?
So. You know, Black Sabbath got it going in the '70s, and then it trans over. And then Ozzy went solo, and that was huge for me because I was a huge Ozzy fan.
Okay.
Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman, and then other bands started coming out, like Iron Maiden, and so all these bands were really big back then. So it had a good following.
You're thinking what at the time? This is just great music that I love. We're going to play it and just have fun, or you're thinking we're going to be big. We're going to sell a lot of albums. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking
having fun or what?
This is going to be what I want to do for the rest of my life, and I got to get in there somehow.
Wow.
That's what I'm thinking because I had no other plan, actually.
No other plan. Are you thinking you're going to be rich doing this, or are you thinking I'm just going to have fun doing it?
Well, I'm the guy that's just like, look, if I can make a living, I don't need to be rich. I just want to do music, you know, not being too greedy or whatever, you know.
When do you start writing, or do you write?
I start writing songs around 12 years old, 13 years old. I'm writing, you know, little cheesy songs. Don't You Know was one, and it was just like this. It's kind of like, not glam metal, but kind of like that, really melodic, you know. And so but the lyrics were totally cheesy, but at least I was.
Do you remember the lyrics?
Yeah.
What? Well, the first time.
You're gonna make me say them.
Of course. For the first time ever on national TV, the lyrics to Brian Head Welch's first song. Go.
I'm not singing it, but it was. It was Don't you know how much I want you? Do you want me, baby? Not knowing is driving me crazy.
Deep. Very deep. Very deep. Beautiful. I love it, man. Maybe you'll do a remix of it at some point.
Did you write a song when you were a kid?
I did.
You gotta
but this interview is about you.
You said I could ask you questions.
I don't know my first song. All right. So what I want to ask you, about who came up with the name Korn, because it's spelled with a K. Where does this come from?
We were underneath that Huntington Beach pier. We were, you know, going towards the wrong way of living, right? We're underneath there. We're drinking 40 ounces, and our singer just said, we were like, what are we going to call ourselves? What are we going to call ourselves? And he said, what about Korn? And there was some like horror movie, Children of the Corn or something. He's like, we could write it with a K and put the R backwards because Toys R Us had that backwards R. And
so the big heavy metal hard rock band got their R from Toys R Us.
Look, we had branding like expertise, all right?
Exactly.
So, no, but we're thinking.
Good idea.
So our singer's lyrics was a lot of it was about growing up and childhood trauma and stuff. So he was like thinking, you know, what if a kid tried to spell corn and wrote it like misspelled it and put the R backwards, like Toys R Us, and some of his lyrics went. So he was just going with that childhood thing.
I like it.
So that's how it came.
So that's how it came about. Mm-hmm. All right. So this is going to be like a little bit of a weird question, but you know, when you think of like a typical song in church or whatever, some of you may or may not. You think melody, verse, chorus, bridge, vamp, or something like that. A heavy metal song, do they have the same embodiment, or because it seems like it's it's a little bit of a little different in structure.
You calling it the music a little messy?
I'm not calling it nothing. I'm asking you.
No, it's
yeah. So what's the structure of a heavy metal song?
So when I was growing up, it was like you know, the opening up the main riff, and then you go into the verse, and then the big hook chorus, and then the guitar player goes in solos, and you know, for like a minute, 2 minutes, and then you come back into the chorus, and then out. So it's similar, yeah. Similar. But then when Korn got together, we didn't do solos. We figured let's make up let's write a whole new bridge section instead of one guy soloing. We'll just do a bridge section and come up with a cool piece of music there instead. And so we started doing that.
So you guys do this band, and you end up, I read somewhere, selling platinum. I mean, just a ton of CDs.
Close to 40 million, yeah.
40 million CDs.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Not bad, right?
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby. One time I read somewhere when you, I don't know which album, maybe you can tell me which album this was, but when the album came out, it hit #1 on the Billboard charts, and I'm talking not just heavy metal, but across the board. Like, I think Dr. Dre had come out with something that same week, and Celine Dion, of all people, came out with something that week, but Korn actually topped all those.
Yeah, it was surreal. It was surreal. And we loved some Dre back then too. You know, and just, we love Dre. I'll say it now that I'm older, but I would even listen to some My Heart Goes On. Celine Dion.
Yeah.
But I'm like, we passed them. Wow. I never called my dad, because my dad was the one saying, hey, get a backup plan. I know you want to be a heavy metal star and everything, but so just to call him and say, Dad, we are #1 this week.
You got to worry about the backup.
He's just going, how did this happen? Congratulations, son, you know. So really
probably
cool.
thought it was you probably thought somebody was pulling the joke or something, right?
Yeah, our bass player Fieldy always said, man, it felt like someone was punking us.
Yeah.
You know? Like someone's gonna come out, just joking. You know, so.
What does it feel like to get all the way there and to experience that? And then how does experiencing such success can put you in such a very low place? You know, because I know that during that time is when the drugs and the depression and all that stuff. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was you know, you just got to be careful what you wish for, and then when you get what you wish for, you got to make sure your foundation is in order,
right?
So you don't, you know, just ruin everything. But the drugs were. I remember I actually tried marijuana when I was like 8 years old. One of my friends had an older brother, and he had an ashtray, and he had some things in there. Wow. And we tried to smoke it. I didn't get high or nothing, but then I tried smoking in 13, and I got so high off one time trying it that I sat in a chair for like 5 hours, and it seemed like 2 minutes.
Wow.
And so I was like, that's not fun. I just lost 5 hours of my life. I'm never doing it again. And then when we first started Korn, we had some guys that we were hanging out with that were helping us like get the band going, and they were doing some harder drugs like meth, and so they were trying to keep it from us. They weren't pushing it at all.
Right.
But I had tried it with some of my close friends once, and so I just got really drunk one night, and I was like, hey man, I'm spinning. I need to sober up. And he's like, well, I got something that can. You know,
right.
And so
it starts the journey.
Yeah.
There were seasons in your life that got extremely heavy with the addiction to drugs. Let's talk about that. How did I know how it started? We just talked about that, but how does it become what I would say an addiction and almost starts controlling your life, if you will?
Oh man, you know, it's the same old story. You think that you can control it, you know, and you're like, oh, I'm not going to turn into one of those people.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't know how I convinced myself that I could be a recreational meth user, but I did. You know, I'm like just doing it once in a while when the Korn was starting. But one good thing that happened was when Korn started hitting the road, like 3 of us were doing meth before we started touring. And once we hit the road, everyone's like, man, we got to get off this stuff. We got to get to work. We got to go out there and.
So you knew it was a problem.
Oh yeah, because that's a hard drug, man.
Yeah.
And so we went on the road and we're like, okay, we'll just do coke. And, you know, the mind,
Right.
you know. And so I wasn't trying to do coke out there, but it was just like, okay, at least you could sleep on that. And we wouldn't do it all the time, but it was mainly just beer, drinking beer and everything. But it was everywhere, man. The drugs and I just never thought about that when I was 10 years old, listening to Ozzy and all that. I wasn't like, I'm going to go on the road and there's going to be hard drugs everywhere and it's going to be a temptation and there's going to be free alcohol and Jägermeister endorsements. I never thought about that. I thought about the music.
Right, exactly. If I'm hearing you correctly, so when you deal with an addictive drug, maybe most people are not thinking this is a necessarily bad thing. This is just something I can control. That's the illusion.
Right, that's the illusion.
That it's not going to.
That was us anyway. Like, we didn't want to go destroy our lives. We just wanted to have a little fun, you know.
Right, right.
And so, but year after year, it would progressively get worse.
So it's a slow progression. It's not something where people think somebody's just overnight an addict. It's something that you kind of.
Yeah.
Right? How do you know when you're, or when would you say it was out of control? Or did you even know?
I mean, it was out of control pretty much from the beginning, but we would step back. Like I said, we would go, okay, so to show myself and us that we're not addicts, we won't do it for a few months, and then we'll come back and do it. But it started getting out of control probably around, I remember 2001. I was getting a little scared. My wife ended up leaving me. She was hooked on meth. And we were using, me and her, we had the baby and we want to be good parents, but we would use like just once in a while. And when I left for tour one day, I noticed about a month into the tour that she had went into everyday like addiction habit pretty much. And so she left me and our child, and she didn't want to leave her baby. She did not want to, but she was afraid of my big, you know, all the lawyers I had and everything. And she was like, I'm never going to win, so why even try? So she loved her kid and loves her daughter very much to this day. But so when I got full custody of my daughter, I got clean. Then 9/11 happened, and I got all stressed out and started drinking again. And then by that time, I moved back to Bakersfield, California, the armpit. But by this time, it was booming, and it was more like modern and everything. So I like Bakersfield now. But I moved back there, and I ran into someone that was a friend that was very successful. And he had all kinds of employees, and he just so happened to dibble-dabble in meth sometimes because his employees would do it. And then he was like running the business, but you know, he thought he had it under control too. I just do it once in a while. And then, so I found out one of his employees' number. I got his cell number, and then I had to connect. And then I had a Korn tour. It was with Linkin Park, and it was a full summer tour. Linkin Park, Snoop Dogg, Korn, and some other bands. And I got so scared because I went on my first week-long or 2-week-long binge of crystal meth where I slept, but I kept using every day. And so I didn't have time to stop, and I was so scared, and I was like, man, I'm going to have to because when you stop meth, if you're doing it for a long time, you got to crash for like a week or two. Like, you just sleep and eat sugar and then go back to sleep. And so I was like, I don't have time to do that. So I bought like a couple of 8 balls of meth and took them on the tour all summer.
Wow.
And that was the worst.
I saw somewhere in the movie where your parents said they didn't even, your mom said in hindsight 2020, she realized all the signs. But at the time, she didn't even know, or they weren't even aware that you were that addicted to meth and on drugs.
Right. I would play it off. I look successful.
Yeah.
You got probably a couple different types of addicts. It's the functioning addict and the non-functioning addict. That's just, you know, and I was a pretty high-functioning addict. I could do all kinds of things, and you know, I played my parts with the band. I was just socially a recluse.
Yeah. At some point, Brian, in the midst of all of this crazy, what some people would call a successful life, somebody introduces you to the message of Christ. Somebody introduces you to the Bible, because you didn't grow up in it, right?
No.
Okay. So at what age, or give us, you know, that experience. How did you have that encounter?
Well, I was the type of guy that, you know, would flip through the channels and be like, land on TBN or a Christian channel and be like, you know, and who knows what I said back then.
Right.
But just, you know, mocked it or whatever. And then, you know, fast forward years and years later, I got to this point where I was on that 2-year binge, right? And I wanted to get clean. I had talked to a couple outpatient rehab places, one in Bakersfield and one in Hollywood. And they both were telling me we don't have as much success with meth addicts as we do with other drug addicts. And I'm just like going,
wow.
So what are you telling me? What can you do for me? And they're like, well, we can try, you know, we just have to be honest with you, and you can do it. You can, you know, if you set your, but I wasn't given like a lot of hope, you know, and so I was just thinking like, I gotta, because by that time I was like, I do not want to exist anymore. I'm a shell walking around with nothing of substance inside, and I got all kinds of money in the bank, but I just don't want to wake up when I go to sleep. I just wish that I could just stay asleep. And, you know, and the only thing that made me want to breathe and live was my daughter. So I'm thinking, I just need to get off the drugs, and so I could just be the best person I could be for her. But then I would have the thoughts when I get back on the drugs or do another line, and that would wear off, I would think, man, she'd better off without me. And I'd start going through the suicidal thoughts and everything. And so it was a tug of war, but I told you that I was a functioning drug addict. I had these partners that were doing real estate deals. They were buying land and developing, and I became a partner with them. And money was like my thing. I never liked to spend it. I always liked to make it grow. That was my thing before. And so these guys were growing their money, and so I blended right with them. And so I was attracted to them and their business through that, and they actually were Christians. Wow. So God was using my money idol, if you will. Right. And so I
pulling you in.
Yeah. And so I did a business deal with them. We bought some land, and they were, I was just, you could tell, man, I was on meth, you know, and anybody could tell something was a little off, you know? Right. And so they ended up just talking to me, and they invited me to go to church one day, and I'm like, you know, I used to mock it when I was growing up, and but I did ask Christ in my heart when I was 12 through some neighbors. But so I held on to that, and when they asked me to come to church, I'm like, you know, all I was thinking was like Ned Flanders from The Simpsons, you know, and it's like, I'm like, okay, they're not kind of like I am, but they're not the same type of person I am, but maybe they're probably sober. So if I go there, it'll be like a community of sober people. I thought Christians that didn't party, you know, that's what I thought. And then I get there and I hear about this Jesus Christ who's real, the Son of God who was here and, you know, died on the cross and raised from the dead and came and would come to live inside of me. So, but I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around. I'm like, so this guy came and walked on the earth in a robe and did miracles, and then died on the cross, and then raised back to life, and now he's going to come live inside of me. I'm like, how does that happen? You know, and but you know, you could feel the presence and everything at that church, what they took me to, and I'm like, man, these people are either crazy or they have the meaning of life. And I started thinking back when I asked Christ in my heart, and I'm like, maybe that was where my journey went the wrong way. Yeah. You know, maybe that's why, sure, I got money and success and fame and everything, but I don't know who I am. Maybe that's where I went off track. And so I was just like, I raised my hand and I went home and I started praying to God like I had been a Christian for 20 years. I was desperate.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful, right? Beautiful. When you have this experience and when you have this re-encounter, if you will, with the Lord, is it a gradual turnaround or is it an overnight turnaround as far as your addiction and your lifestyle at that point?
It was pretty overnight when I think about, you know, it was just a couple weeks, 3 weeks or something, but man, the pastor was so cool there. He just talked about, like, he was in jeans and a regular shirt. He didn't look like holier than thou. And he just said, look, man, if you're on drugs, if you're messed up, if you have a bad marriage, you're alcoholic, you come to church while you're messed up.
Yeah.
Bring all your garbage here, and God will come in and clean you out. You know. So it was like non-judgmental, and so I kept going. I was high on meth, going to church, you know, and I'm like, I would tell God, like, I want to get off this stuff. You know, my daughter deserves a better father, and I want to be what she deserves.
We get a chance to experience that whole process of God coming into your life, you getting radically saved, and then you changing, thinking, I need to get out of Korn, I need to get away from all of the music stuff. And then somewhere in I don't want to give too much away or try to tell your testimony, but at some point you end up going broke, and it still doesn't quite put your relationship with your daughter back together. There's a whole little process there that's going on. I know I'm not doing it justice because there's a lot, but just talk about for a little bit how that after you got saved and how you got radically saved, you start this journey that you think is going to make everything better, but it doesn't quite go that way. Talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, so I met Christ. He's the light of the world. He became a man, but like his spirit, his light came into me, and I knew he was real. And I had some intimate encounters like right away. And so I was just instantly addicted to that relationship. It was like all in. And so the first year was like amazing. I'm going to be the best dad I could be. It was focused on Christ and my daughter. That was it. And I wanted to learn this life, you know, get to know how to walk with him. And I was hoping for a quick healing, you know.
Yeah.
And then the old issues started coming back up. And, you know, there was a lot of conversations that I had with God about, you know, him taking his time and healing me, you know. But then I was
thinking it's going to be. Yeah.
And then I was like, but okay. Then I would come back to my senses and be like, I did this damage to myself. Why am I mad at you? But then I would meet someone at some church or something. They'd be like, yeah, I was just instantly, my anger's gone right when, and I'm like,
what happened? Right. Like, what's up?
And I got holes in my walls.
Yeah.
You know? And so I went through all that. My daughter grew up, and it was fine. She saw some things. I dealt with anger and rage while a Christian, you know, as a Christian. She saw some things that she shouldn't have, but we had some great times as well. But she turns like, you know, early teens, her mom's still not in her life really, a little bit, but not much. And so all these issues with her start coming to the surface. And, you know, I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost 2 cars, 2 working vans. I went broke and everything. And so, and I got through it. It was awesome though, because I learned a lot to trust God that if you have plenty or if you're in lack, he'll always take care of you. Yeah. It doesn't matter. So it was good. But how I lost it was hard. My daughter even saw it. You know, I got ripped off by some people, and they were supposedly Christians, and she's like seeing this. She's like, I don't want to be a Christian.
Right.
What are all these people doing to my dad? They're saying you can't be a Christian and have tattoos, and people are just judging me. She's like, I don't want nothing to do with this. And so she starts going through depression too.
You pick up right where you left off, but I just want to jump in right quick. What do you say? Because it seems to me like a lot of times people don't want to come to Christ, or they don't want to come to church. They don't want to watch a show like this or watch this channel for a lot of these reasons that you're talking about. That, you know, you go broke if you become a Christian, or it's not, you know, or somebody wants your money, or somebody else's that's just after you. What do you say to people that, you know, because you've been on both sides of the wall. What do you say that kind of, not necessarily kills that argument, but just kind of brings light to what's truly going on here when you talk about relationship with the Lord?
I just feel like, man, people, if you're going to let man chase you away from God, from their mistakes, then after your life's over, you're going to really regret that, because it's like, that's why Jesus says, forgive 99 times. I mean, you're the preacher.
7 times
so,
70.
Oh,
yeah.
That's 99's a sheep, right? Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm still learning.
He goes after the one. That's
I'm
great.
still learning.
Great.
7 times 7 or whatever.
7 times 70.
Yeah. So that's a lot of forgiveness. Jesus says forgive over and over, basically, because people are screwed up. Christians, Lord, give me patience for a lot of Christians out there.
Well,
too,
because you said in the movie, I thought I had to fix myself first, get off drugs, alpha meth, then go to church. I thought I saw that in the movie where you said something like that, and that's why you didn't go to church at first. You thought you had to fix yourself first.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought if I walk into church, I'd blow up like a, you know, because God will judge me, you know.
Right.
He'll like splat me because I'm on meth in his house or whatever,
Right.
you know. You have all these preconceived ideas.
What I think is so interesting about your story, Brian, is that you don't fall one time. It's a journey, and you're saying today that God still accepts you with your journey or with your process. Is that what you're saying?
I feel like He loves failure so much. He loves the biggest messes, man, because that's where He shines, you know. Yeah, He's so good.
It's really good. I feel like I've known Brian forever.
I know. I feel the same way.
Right? It's like, I feel like I've met this guy forever. It's always interesting that God will use real people that went through real situations to bring extraordinary breakthrough, and I believe that's what you represent here. That's the purpose. What I'd like to do is just kind of just minister, if you will, do what you do best. But let's first bring some enlightenment on what happens, because now that you went through that entire process, which you got to watch on the movie, by the way, you're now back with the band Korn. You play, you guys still rock it out, but you do something different now. There's an opportunity for ministry. Talk about that a little bit, or how that happens.
I call it just loving on the fans, you know. And so back in the day, we had these big old bodyguards, right? And we treated women like objects, and we would go, say, after show pass. If they had a boyfriend, they had to leave them if they came backstage and all this stuff. And so we're older, mature, people are remarried and got their heads on straight. So now I got friends all over the world, and I give them backstage, or I guess not backstage passes, but like little
VIP.
Separate, yeah, VIP little area passes. And I go gather like, 20, 30, people, and I just go and I tell them my story. And I talk about life, I talk about who I was, who I am now, and I pray for them. Wow. And just tell them the truth, man, and that's it.
Let me make sure I understand you correctly. Yeah, that's good. Beautiful. At a rock concert, at a heavy metal concert, at some point there are people out there that are gathering people to bring to the side that after the show you're going to go and pray with and talk to.
Yeah, all the time. We do it all the time.
So for you, man, you kind of fall in that middle lane that you probably catch it from the religious side as well as I would imagine, the unreligious side, right? Because you can't be preaching you can't be playing at no Korn and talk about you're a Christian, and then, you can't, we don't believe in this Jesus thing that you're talking. So you catch it from both ends, right?
Man, remember that rejection I had when I was a kid? Man, I get rejection on both sides now too. It's like, what, are you joking me? But, I just focus on me and my journey with the Lord, and my strength is that relationship.
Come on, brother. It's what?
So the relationship. That's my strength.
Yeah.
So they could persecute me on this side, and I'm going to love them. They could persecute me on this side, and I'm going to love them too. Yeah. And I'm just going to focus on the relationship, because when I get battle wounded and emotionally scarred from people sometimes, the Lord will just
because that can happen in church, right?
Oh, yeah, man. Christians are brutal sometimes, bro. You know it. You know it.
Brian, come on.
We're all broken, though. I don't blame them.
We are. Come on. We're going to step down here. We're going to come down here amongst y'all. Y'all ready? Yeah. All right, come on. This movie, Loud, Crazy Love. Let's talk about it real quick. Is it out? When does it come out? How can I find it? It's out now.
And it's on Amazon, iTunes, everything. And it was on Showtime for a limited run. Now it's out wide. So
nationwide. All right. Just by show of hands, how many of you have ever dealt with or know anybody that's dealing with addiction or depression or anything?
Yeah. 90%.
90%. Right? Yeah, it's a very high number. I don't think people realize how much Christian folks, these are Christian people, these are folks that love the Lord, that are still battling and dealing with this type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. What can we say to these guys here tonight? Let's talk to some people here tonight. What do you say to somebody here tonight that is battling or dealing with some type of addiction or substance abuse? What is the first thing that you usually share?
Don't ever quit. No matter how many times you fall, you keep going to the Lord.
Yeah.
Don't quit on God, Come on. Because one day, one day, one time you're gonna get up and you're gonna stay up. That's it, you know, and it's real. And God is very real, and He takes His Spirit, and His Spirit is pure love, and He pours it into your soul, and you get satisfied with that. And there's no better high than that, and that's why you lose the addiction, you know.
Yeah, it's amazing. What do you say to people that feel like they cannot, you know, it's great that I know there's some great churches represented here tonight, and obviously whoever introduced you to Christ, you went, thank God, to a good church and somebody that was dressed and looked normal enough to where you felt comfortable. To somebody that's watching the program and they're in a community or a city where there is not that church or place that they can feel comfortable, how can they get to a place where they can be true or be honest to say, hey, listen, this is really what I'm dealing with. Like you even got women that are, you know, married and got children and whatnot and still feel like there's something missing. There's an insecurity, there's a depression or oppression. How do you get them to the place to where, or what do you say to get them to be honest about it first and to be transparent? Is there a way?
Yeah, I think so. I think in every city or town or most, you know, that there is a church that has pure hearts, and they'll be able to. You can take any junk that you have and talk to them about it, and if not, you know, you can find someone on Facebook and meet at Starbucks or something. You know, just don't talk yourself out of it.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I can't do that. Those people will judge me. Da, da. There's always someone somewhere that you can connect with. But people give up too easy in life. You know, they give up. Yeah. Why give up? There's a victory over, you know, just past this one time that you try. You're going to get to this place, and your whole life can change forever, man.
Yeah.
And so
let's talk to the church right quick, just real quick. Don't go too hard on them, but just.
I love the church, man.
I know you do. I'm messing with you. But take a quick minute to help those of us that are on the other side of this thing. We've never dealt with addiction, or we've never dealt with nothing. How can we do better? What would you say to the pastors around? Here's your chance to speak to the pastors around the world. Pastor, here's something you could say from your pulpit that will help those that are in the shadows of your city that may want to come and hear the message of Christ.
And I will give it back to the guy that was he was the preacher, but he was just a normal guy. And he was like, man, bring your mess here. And it's okay that that you're a mess in this place. In my church, it's okay that you're a mess. We're never going to give up on you, because God will never give up, you know. And you can't give someone the behavioral steps to be like Christ-like. He's got to have time to pour His Spirit in and do a supernatural work inside of him. And we can't. That takes time.
Come on, brother.
You got to be patient. And I'm talking to myself too. You know, because it's a work that God wants to do, and it's not fast food. You know, it's like it takes a minute. You know.
Be patient with the process.
Yeah.
So the church is all about a process, and I think that the world that judges us sometimes need to be mindful of that, because they judge us very hard.
Yeah.
But then the church itself too has to be careful not to judge the world and those that are coming in. So what I hear today more than anything with your messages, and even the message of Loud Crazy Love, is that with God, it's all about the process and the patience of that process.
Yeah.
And it brings about the promise.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm a big just opponent of not making it us and them. Like the world, oh, that's them. It's like we're all broken humans. The only thing is that us that believe in Christ, and He's inside of us, and we're letting Him get all our junk out. And sometimes you see that mess out there, but you know, I think everybody is just the same. We're all broken, you know.
Yeah. Did you think you were gonna make it?
Just through the addiction and everything. I didn't think I was gonna make it out, and if I did think I was gonna make it out of the addiction, I thought I would just carry that depression for the rest of my life, and I would just have to bare knuckle it. And Christ has taken away my depression. He's given me, I'm a new creation, you know, a brand new creation. Can I say one thing? I am a new creation, and He's taken that, and He's given me so much hope, but I'm gonna be honest, like I do take non-narcotic, mild depression medication, and I got off it for a while, and I needed to get back on it, and so that there's no shame in that either. Good. Whatever works for you, you know?
Yeah. For the depression.
Yeah, for the mild depression, not a lot, just
Yeah. We just did a seminar at our church down in Hollywood, and it was just for mental health wellness, because I think it's a subject that we don't talk about enough in church. And part of that is bipolar and other things that even as a Christian you will deal with. And so I thank you for being transparent about that and honest about that. Well, I'll tell you, I think our time is just about up. Here's what I would like to do. I would just like to go out with you praying over all of these folks that are here today. If you're here today and you currently are being challenged in this area of addiction, I want you to stand to your feet real quick all over. Don't be embarrassed at all. Just stand to your feet.
Yep.
And if you're at home, I want you to take a stand as well. And Brian, I want you to just pray over everyone here right now.
Awesome, awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Lord, I thank you that your word says no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived the wonderful things that you have prepared for those that love you.
Thank you, Lord.
And so when we read that, Lord, it feels like it's saying, oh, but we have to wait until the next life. But the next verse says, but you have revealed it to us by your Spirit. And so that's the whole issue right there. The Spirit comes in to people's lives and does the work inside. And it's not always a quick work. It's not always a joyful work. Sometimes it's a good balance. But I thank you that your Spirit is real. Your Spirit is love. Your Spirit is true life. And I ask you right now.
Thank you, Lord.
And I ask you, Holy Spirit, to come and pour into everybody here, Lord, that you would just remove the addictions.
Thank you, God. By
replacing the true addiction, which is the pure love of God. There's nothing wrong with being addicted to the pure love of God. So, and grace, Lord, grace is actually a power. The Spirit of grace is actually a power that comes inside of us and allows us to live this life that Christ wants to live through us. So I ask you for that Spirit of grace to come pour into every person here, into families that have addictive friends or relatives or whatever. Give them that same Spirit. Just help us all. We're broken, Lord. We need the power of your Spirit to come and fix us. So we trust that you will do that. Thank you. In Jesus' name.